What exactly does the WWE has in store with The Rock and WrestleMania 41? We dive into that and more on today's episode of the J Area Wrestling Podcast. What is going on, members of the J Area Pro Wrestling fans all across the globe? My name is Ramos Jr. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of the J Area Wrestling Podcast. And as you saw in the title, you saw in the thumbnail, it's everything about The Rock and Cody Rhodes from their segment on this past week's Friday Night SmackDown. Leading into the episode of Friday Night SmackDown, we uploaded a video discussing the possibility of Dwayne The Rock Johnson and his inclusion in WWE's creative plans and whether or not he's really hurting rather than helping them. I'm a big fan of Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I've always been a fan of The Rock ever since I was an early fan, ever since I was a kid. And to see this latest run with the WWE, it's raised more questions than answers. Again, if you haven't checked out that video from last week about us talking about the build up from WrestleMania 40 all the way to present day WWE, do yourself a favor, catch up with the content, and check that video out. Because in today's episode of the podcast, we're talking about moving forward into WrestleMania 41. What was that promo, right? What was that segment that The Rock and Cody Rhodes had done on SmackDown? I mean, the big question really was, what was he going to discuss? I think the most common answer, the one that we shared here on the channel, was that of the announcement of New Orleans being the home of WrestleMania 42. Nailed it on the head, right? I mean, it wasn't that big of a jump, wasn't that big of a leap of a prediction, but nonetheless, we got that right. New Orleans will be the home for the third time for the grandest stage of them all. But The Rock, of course, that wasn't the only thing he came to discuss on Friday Night SmackDown. He wanted to bring out the current reigning and defending WWE Champion, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. And what was interesting about this promo, it really teeter-tottered on the lines of reality and fiction. The Rock, many times over, was talking as a babyface and then as a heel, and then as a babyface and then as a heel. And I get it, for the smart wrestling fans like you and I, we can distinguish one between the other. But for the average viewer, and really just in terms of common sense and consistency, what are you doing, right? You can't ride the line. You can't be one and then the other. You got to stick to one. You got to commit to one. Are you a heel or a baby face? Because we looked at the last year in the WWE's television program, and we saw him as a heel, as the final boss, which has been a revelation for The Rock and, quite frankly, for the WWE as well. And then you see his involvement at Bad Blood. Then his appearance at Monday Night Raw on Netflix, and then that NXT episode as well. And it's kind of been all over the place when it comes to The Rock. I think it's a very smart idea to feed into the reality of him being the final boss, of him being essentially the boss of the WWE. He's a member of the TKO board. Why not feed into that? But then you look at the way that his presentation with Cody has been presented, and I can't help but think that they don't have everything lined up just yet. Because even Triple H alluded to this during his Twitter post leading into the Monday Night Raw, or rather the Friday Night SmackDown episode with The Rock appearing on it. He talked about how at any moment with the final boss making an appearance, everything can change. I still think that this lead up to WrestleMania 41 is left open-ended because not everything is in concrete detail. I think we know where the main players are going to be, but the grand scheme of creative is still up in the air. And we discussed it in that episode, in that video last week, talking about The Rock and creative, is that whenever he comes in, things are having to be shifted. Things are having to be moved around in order to accommodate a big star like The Rock. But we dive into the promo itself. He talks about how proud he is of Cody Rhodes, which again, in contrast to what we've seen in the last year, but how proud he is that he has held that championship with honor, with dignity, and has been the face of the company during their resurgence in terms of mainstream appeal. That's all well fine and dandy. But then let's get down to the nitty-gritty of it all. We want to talk about why. And The Rock talks to Cody Rhodes and says that you've been a great champion, but you've been here. I want to be able to get you here to the next level. And this is when it takes a turn, because The Rock is still trying to become friends with the audience, but still has that hint of heelness. I don't know. Again, it looks to me like The Rock is suffering from some level of a split personality or even schizophrenia, when it comes to the ebbs and flows of the on-air persona of the Great One. But The Rock, he tells Cody, you're here. I want to be able to take you here. And he offers him an opportunity. I want you to be my champion. I want you to represent the company in a way that we all can be proud of you, Cody. You said you're fans of the people. You're the people's champion. That's what Cody claims to be. I want you to be my champion. And he goes on to point over at Cody and he says, I want that. And Cody, of course, looks at him confused and says, you want the WWE title? And The Rock, again, in the most unintentionally comedic way possible, says, no. I want your soul. And in 2025, I would have never imagined something as ludicrous as I want your soul to be spoken on WWE TV, especially during this regime of the product. But nonetheless, The Rock wants Cody to sell out. He wants to become his corporate champion, which I think is a very fitting theme here. And if there's one thing that I do like about this segment, is that running theme of the people versus the corporate champion. Because The Rock, all the way back in 1998, when he first won the WWE title at the Survivor Series event, he turned heel and became Vince's corporate champion. And Cody Rhodes, who's very much been a people's champion ever since his rise with the company during his return in 2022 until his Royal Rumble win in 2023, and then ultimately winning the World Championship in 2024, has been a champion for the people. But The Rock says, you want to go up to the next level, you got to reach the corporate status. You got to become my champion. So it's like looking in the mirror, seeing how The Rock, who was the people's champion for so long, had actually started out as the corporate champion alongside Vince McMahon. And over time, he regained the support of the fans and left off into superstardom to see that he is now one of the biggest stars in all of really entertainment. So The Rock is the right answer when it comes to being Cody's next opponent. But the thing is, The Rock even alluded to that in the post-conference, saying the story between The Rock and Cody doesn't have to culminate in the ring, where, newsflash, this is pro wrestling, and it always ends in the ring. So I think what we're going to end up seeing here is someone is going to turn on Cody Rhodes and become more aligned with The Rock. If Cody's not going to be that corporate champion, someone will love to fill in that position. And it really leads us to two possible scenarios. Really three. If you really bring it down, it could be three. But I think one is not likely to happen. John Cena is the heavy favorite to win the Elimination Chamber. I don't think he's turning heel. I really don't. But someone that would be is CM Punk. You see, CM Punk, upon returning to the WWE, made it very clear, I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money. And how ironic would it be that CM Punk aligns himself with The Rock, who had returned in 2013, stealing away the spotlight from CM Punk in his 434-day title reign as WWE Champion. How fitting would it be if CM Punk aligns himself with The Rock, becoming that legend of the past, taking away from the star of today? That in itself is compelling storytelling. But I also think that Drew McIntyre is a possible opportunity here. I think if anybody lines up with The Rock in his viewpoint of being a corporate champion, it's Drew McIntyre. He already has issues with Cody Rhodes in the Bloodline, so why wouldn't he team up with The Rock? Now, I know what you're thinking. He teams up with The Rock, he's essentially teaming up with the Bloodline, but maybe it's one of those heelish things where Drew McIntyre says, I'll work with you this time to get what I want, and then when I win the championship, bye-bye. That's a possibility in itself. But if you want my prediction, I think we could see this happening. There's been reports that a possible triple threat match could be occurring between John Cena, Cody Rhodes, and CM Punk for that WWE Championship. I would love to see that matchup because you have so many layers of the story being told. Can Cena win the 17th title? Cena reigniting his feud with Punk. Punk revisiting Cody Rhodes after having two solid promos in the lead up to back-to-back Royal Rumbles. Can Cody Rhodes defeat two of the greatest stars in the modern WWE? So many layers to discuss just within that matchup. But I think what we could see happen is maybe John Cena wins the Chamber, is able to win an opportunity against Cody Rhodes for his WWE Championship in pursuit of number 17 and breaking the Ric Flair record. And then maybe CM Punk decides to cash in on that favor with Paul Heyman, because last time I checked, Paul Heyman and The Rock are both a part of the very same bloodline. So maybe, just maybe, CM Punk cashes in on that favor and says, I want a meeting with The Rock. I want a match at WrestleMania. I don't want just any match. I want the match. I want the main event. WWE Championship. So The Rock says, okay, but I want you to be my champion. And CM Punk gets the matchup. And so the stage is set. Triple threat match. John Cena, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes. It writes itself. Is it going to happen? You and I are going to have to wait and see if that's in the plans. But you can't tell me that that's not at least the very bit of enticing that any WWE matchup could have at WrestleMania 41. But The Rock, again, leading up to the promo, it was must see. It's The Rock. You know we have to see what the Great One, what the final boss has to say, especially with this build up to WrestleMania 41 being kind of a little bit down the line here. You fall on one of the edges here. Some people are fans of it. A lot of people are saying it's kind of underwhelming, but when you had a WrestleMania like 39 and 40, it's very difficult to live up to that hype, right? I look at the way it's been built up, and I keep saying it's been fluid. It opens up opportunities for other stories to be explored. I think the way it shapes out, bear with me here. We have the triple threat match that I just mentioned for the WWE title. Jey Uso has already announced he's going to go after Gunther. Charlotte's going to face Tiffany Stratton for her title. I think Rhea Ripley is going to win the World Championship matchup against Io and face whoever wins that chamber matchup. That's already 4 big matches being made. I also think Randy Orton's going to be facing Kevin Owens. Seth Rollins, I think, is going to face Roman Reigns. I think that's the move there, especially after the attack by Seth Rollins at the Royal Rumble event. And that already takes out 6 major matches, and then it's just a matter of filling in the mid-card portions. But I think that's the direction we're going to take for the WrestleMania card. Could things change? You better believe it. And with The Rock being around, you can count on something being either cut or altered in order to acquiesce to The Rock's schedule and character development. I don't know how it's going to turn out. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments regarding The Rock's participation in the build-up to WrestleMania 41, as well as the possibility of Cody Rhodes turning heel. And that's what I want to talk about next. Is it time to turn Cody heel? Because some people are already arguing that, saying that it would be a great fresh coat of paint for the character of the American Nightmare. Should we turn him heel, align himself with The Rock, and become the corporate champion? Again, it's another story that writes itself. He's the American Nightmare. He wants to turn his back on the fans before they turn on him, because it always happens. It always happens to these babyfaces. Ask John Cena. But I think if you ask me for my opinion, and obviously if you're here on my channel and watching this episode of the podcast, you'd like to hear a little bit of insight, from me at least, I think it's the wrong call. I don't think he turns heel. 1, that's my prediction. Doesn't turn heel. 2, he should not turn heel, at least now. Down the road, possible, but not now. Cody is selling merch. Cody is the #1 guy in the #1 promotion in all of pro wrestling. The kids love him. The families come to see him, and they bring the kids along, which helps with the money. Why would you turn that heel? It's the same reason why they didn't turn John Cena heel for so long. It just doesn't make sense in the sense of business. And if it's not making money, it's not making sense, if you feel me. Cody Rhodes shouldn't turn heel. It's too soon. He hasn't even cracked a year with that championship. Now, what I do think they could do is start introducing a little bit of characteristics of him going to the dark side. Allow that championship to take a sense of greed into Cody. Punk talked about it in that promo leading up to the Royal Rumble and said that championship changes you. He knows he was champion for 434 days, and he was a lot different from the man that he was when he won the championship to the man that he was when he finally lost it. It changes you. That greed, that competitiveness, that paranoia that builds up as everyone tries to gun for the target on your back as champion. So I would love to see a more desperate Cody Rhodes, a more vicious side of the American Nightmare. And we saw that at the Royal Rumble with his matchup against Kevin Owens. I'd love to see them feed more into that, because that would be great storytelling. Should he turn heel now? Absolutely not. Should he turn heel eventually? I don't see how he can't. I really don't. This era of the WWE has really managed to hone in on the storytelling aspect of its characters, its long-term booking, and making sure it stays consistent and true to the characters that are being presented. look no further than Kevin Owens, which, by the way, that feud between him and Sami Zayn, cooking already. They have a matchup at Elimination Chamber. Of course, it's non-sanctioned, which means anything goes in that matchup. And Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are known to deliver fantastic matches in whatever capacity they are involved with. You know their matches in PWG and Ring of Honor, NXT, and the main roster. Whenever these two go at it, it is sure to be cinema. But the thing is, too, if it's a tag team match or a one-on-one contest, hell, even a ladder match at WrestleMania 32, whenever these two touch, it's magic. And Kevin Owens has fully demonstrated why he has no love lost for Sami Zayn. He trusted him. That's his brother. That's his friend. And you basically proven him to be a fool because Kevin Owens wanted to help Sami Zayn win the Royal Rumble on one condition, and that's if you allow me the chance to win back a WWE Championship that was never really his. But now here we are. We set the stage. Canada, Toronto, the home country of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. They will have their latest battle in a non-sanctioned matchup. Of course, if you want to know my predictions for that matchup as well as the other Elimination Chamber matches, make sure you tune into this week's predictions video where I share my thoughts and opinions on every single matchup that's currently scheduled as well as who I think will emerge victorious from each respected matches. But the Elimination Chamber, of course, being this weekend, is a highly anticipated PLE because it is the final stop before WrestleMania 41. Who's going to win the chamber matches for the men and for the women? I can talk day and night about my predictions for each matchup because there's so many different options and so many different avenues to take in regards to their WrestleMania appearances. But again, that is something for a different day. Tune in for Wednesday's video in order to see who I have selected as the respected victors in each match. And in other news, AEW is finally beginning to regain a level of momentum here as we head towards AEW Revolution, their next installment in their pay-per-view this year. And I gotta tell you, I'm looking forward to it. We got a decent card forming. Of course, we have the main event being Moxley defending his championships against Adam Copeland. I don't call him Cope. I won't call him Edge because I know he doesn't go by that now. But still, a matchup that I'm still intrigued to see. I don't think they're going to pull the trigger on Cope winning the championship. But again, we'll save that for the predictions video later in the week. We also have the steel cage match between Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher. Toni Storm versus Mariah May, Part 3. And then we have Mercedes Moné defending her championship as well. A few matches there that we're really looking forward to, but I gotta tell you, the one I'm looking forward to the most, MJF, Hangman, Adam Page. We haven't seen these two in a major matchup, especially on pay-per-view, ever since AEW has come live, really. And the story here that's being told is the insecurities of MJF and his unwillingness to accept that he wants to be loved by the audience, which is something that Hangman knows all too well. Recognized as one of the big faces of AEW and the earlier champions in all elite wrestling, Hangman's story and his ascension to the top is one that is really centered around AEW and its fan base. And I love to see him in a more successful capacity and in the world title scene again. AEW Revolution coming live from Crypto.com Arena. Can't wait to see that as well this upcoming weekend. And that'll be coming up on March 9th, rather. But when we have that coming up next weekend, we'll love to see it. The prediction video will be up and going. But nonetheless, it's a fun time to be a professional wrestling fan with Revolution around the corner, Elimination Chamber this upcoming weekend. Again, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments in terms of your predictions and just your wish list, really, for the wrestling year. What are some predictions that you have leading into WrestleMania or even leading out into 2026? So much to discuss, even with the TNA invasion in NXT. Rather, not invasion, but the partnership that's being introduced. This week, we're going to see the Hardys on NXT and then Moose defending the defending the TNA X Division Championship against Lexis King. Two things happening on one episode of NXT, something I would have not predicted coming into the year. But nonetheless, it is happening. It is a hot time to be a pro wrestling fan. I'm excited. I hope you guys are excited. And please feel free to comment down below some of your thoughts and predictions in terms of this partnership as well. TNA and NXT. TNA is on a hot streak, man. They're doing great numbers, great business, and slowly beginning to rebuild their better years like they were back in the mid to late 2000s. But we're talking about the WrestleMania season. Elimination Chamber, again, right around the corner. The men's, the women's chambers should be delivering. And if you haven't seen the live stream that we had this past Sunday, where I ranked every single Elimination Chamber matchup since its inception in 2002, go ahead and double check in the archive and see where we had everything ranked, and let me know how your guys' rankings match up to mine. We bring this short episode to a close. Of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr., and I want to thank you guys for joining me on today's episode of the J Area Wrestling Show, as well as make sure to check out some of the live streams that we have throughout this week, and make sure you cast your vote for this week's Throwback Thursday stream, where we talk about past wrestling stories as well as the darker side of pro wrestling. But with that being said, I want to thank you guys again for joining me on today's episode of the J Area Wrestling Show, and I will see you all in the next one.